We are watching the potential for severe thunderstorms on our Friday into Saturday, heavy rain through the Easter weekend. We have all the details and more next at the Weather Farm. Welcome to the Weather Farm. We have a very active Friday afternoon into Saturday, and we want to get right to the details. As we begin our Friday morning, we're seeing that snow move out of Wyoming through the mountains of Colorado. Again, it's going to bring generally light amounts to Colorado after seeing some significant snowfalls across parts of Wyoming on our Thursday. Snow continues to move across the Canadian provinces in association with that weather system that moved through the upper Great Lakes on our Thursday afternoon. Did bring some severe weather there, but we're seeing primarily snow across parts of Manitoba into Ontario, just south of Hudson Bay. We do see a low pressure system and some remnant showers across the upper Great Lakes. Those are going to continue to die out, but we're going to watch that same area for our Friday afternoon as we see another line of storms beginning to develop. Look at those pressure lines. They're all going from southwest to northeast. That is a strong indication that we have southwesterly winds across the lower central plains through the Tennessee and Ohio valleys all the way into the northeast. In fact, we can look at that and we see it from our temperatures. We see widespread 70s, 80s, even upper 90s in far southern Texas. And that warmth extends all the way into Pennsylvania and even into far western New York, where we're going to see temperatures generally 10 to 15 degrees above our seasonal norms for our Friday. Out across the Rocky Mountains, where that snow has fallen, Wyoming, you're going to be primarily in the 20s and 30s, as well as those higher elevations in Colorado, going to be kept down with that snowfall. But we see generally seasonal conditions, if not slightly below, across the upper Great Plains through the Intermountain West. One of the big reasons we think we're going to have some severe weather on our Friday is the dew points. We're going to let this map reset. But as we see our dew points on our Friday, we see a large plume of 60-degree plus dew points from Texas all the way up into Michigan. That is going to provide a rich moisture environment that's going to help fuel these storms to get developed and going to provide a lot of rain that's going to be able to be dispersed across this area. So we have a lot to watch on our Friday afternoon. In fact, the Storm Prediction Center has gone ahead and they've upgraded and issued a level 2 risk of severe weather from Texas all the way through Missouri up into central Michigan. This is a widespread area for this time of the year, and that just shows the extent of this storm. It may not punch the tornadic elements that we've seen with prior storms this spring season, but this is going to be a far-reaching and impactful system to begin our Easter weekend. In fact, we're going to see the main threats associated with this storm as being primarily wind, and we're going to see hail with this system. In fact, the Storm Prediction Center has also gone ahead and upgraded parts of central Oklahoma, parts of Kansas and Texas into a hatched area, meaning a significant hail event could be possible in that area. That's going to primarily be overnight Friday into Saturday when you're sleeping. So it's something that you're going to want to make sure that you have your weather apps ready, you have your phone fully charged, you have a weather radio in your house to make sure you get the latest information if severe weather were to strike. The risk of tornadoes is not going to be as great. We probably could see some isolated tornadoes in that green area. And then we look down towards Oklahoma into Texas. We have a small 5% area of tornadoes for our Friday. And again, this is going to primarily be an overnight event. We have a stalled boundary in that area, and a lot's going to depend upon where the system exactly sets up, where those key elements set up. Is there a capping in the atmosphere that's going to limit the severe potential? Is that cap going to be burst through and then everything's just going to be full steam ahead with this particular system? So let's dive into Texas right now. And as we look at these storms as they are developing overnight Friday into Saturday across parts of Oklahoma and Texas, I want to look at some of the SKU-T analysis because while it appears that the significant tornado parameter is very elevated above a 4 or 5, so tornadoes would be likely, there are a couple things I want to point out of why we don't think that we don't have good confidence yet on this. So here's one. This is in Oklahoma. We see the CAPE values down here in the lower left. They're exceptionally high, 2,000, 3,000 joules per kilogram. We see the energy helicity index above a 5. We see the storm relative helicities well over 300. Shear is decent. All of these things would indicate that we would have the possibility of a tornado. Even the sounding is indicated that a possible tornado is possible with this type of sounding. The problem that I'm seeing with this is when we look at the hodograph up here in the upper right, we're seeing a lot of veering and then back veering. So that's not getting that consistent rotation in the atmosphere. We would like to see this continue to veer in a clockwise motion, but we get this back veering here. So that's going to limit some of that upward development of the thunderstorms. Plus, the lifted condensation layer is about 1 kilometer. Not terribly high for a severe weather outbreak. We would like it to be a little bit closer to the surface. So what we may end up seeing across parts of Oklahoma and Texas is just an elevated severe thunderstorm risk, elevated hail risk, elevated strong winds. Might not see the tornadoes, but a lot can change if the variables all come together in the right way, and we can just see a little bit of wobble in any of these sounding metrics. That could then spur overnight tornadoes Friday into Saturday. And let's look at a couple other ones. Let's go down here more to Central Texas. We're going to see basically the same thing. We're going to see strong CAPE values, energy helicity, storm relative. Tornado is indicated by the sound, but we just don't have that good rotation from the hodograph sounding. So that's again why we think this is going to be more of an elevated storm risk rather than on the ground tornadoes. But we could be completely wrong if just all the atmospheric conditions come together in the right setup. A little bit closer back to the Ohio Valley, we're going to watch those storms develop on our Friday. Scattered storms across Michigan, nothing too severe, but it is Friday afternoon into Friday evening. We start to see a line forming through Missouri and Illinois. And those storms that are up in southern Wisconsin, Illinois, those have the potential to develop into tornadic storms if the elements are just right. But primarily, this is going to be a heavy rain event through Kansas, Missouri, Illinois, and Indiana as we begin our Saturday. In fact, we see that heavy rain here on our weather map to start our Saturday morning. And we see that, again, those southwesterly, the northeasterly lines, again, we're going to have a lot of moisture, a lot of fuel to fuel these heavy rains. And that is why we're going to watch the potential for some flooding in this area over the weekend. Out across the Mountain West, we're just dealing with a little bit of light snow in southern Colorado and northern New Mexico. And in the Northeast, we're continuing to see that low continue to move off towards the East Coast, bringing snow to the Canadian provinces and rain to the far northeast. And our temperatures on our Saturday going to be slightly cooler across Kansas, northern Missouri, Iowa, and Illinois and Indiana. You're going to be a little bit north of that warm front. And so we're going to see temperatures there held down into the 50s and 60s, while the 70s and 80s continue across the southeastern part of the United States for our Saturday. And in terms of severe weather, the Storm Prediction Center has really shifted that threat mainly across parts of Arkansas, Oklahoma, and Texas for our Saturday. We're going to watch this area again for continued development of thunderstorms, severe hail, and strong winds on our Saturday. Let's put the whole weekend into motion again. We're going to watch this system develop on our Friday across the Central Plains into the Ohio Valley. This is going to bring extreme heavy rain Friday night into Saturday, Saturday evening into Sunday morning for your Easter plans. We're then going to watch that low begin to form, and this is the European model. It has kind of trended up. If you joined us in yesterday's video, we saw a low that was deepening to about a 995 millibar. The latest model runs have kind of brought it back towards the GFS. So we don't think, again, we're going to have as intense of strong winds. This is going to be more of a heavy rain with isolated severe weather and some hail and strong winds associated with this system. And in terms of our rainfall, we're going to see significant amounts. Now, this is the European model. It still wants to bring the heaviest axis of rain across parts of central and southern Illinois, back through Missouri, into Kansas and Oklahoma. 2 to 3 inches are likely. If you remember yesterday's video, the European model was showing a 4 or 5 inch rain. So it's also back down on the rain amounts, but still kept it a little bit further west than the GFS model does. So this is a sign that the models are beginning to come into some sort of agreement on the strength, the intensity, and the path of this storm. And when we look at that GFS model, it's also in that general 2 to 3 inch rain amount. It does have some 4 to 5 inch amounts across parts of Oklahoma. That's going to be more due to those storms that come through on Friday night into Saturday. And then as that system begins to move out of Texas and Oklahoma on our Easter and move to the northeast by Monday morning. So that's where we're going to see the heaviest amounts of rain. Again, a little bit further west than what we were showing last night. But the thing that I'm noticing also on the GFS model is now across parts of eastern Kentucky and eastern Tennessee, we're now seeing some heavy rain amounts in those locations. So we could see isolated 1 to 2 inch rain amounts in that part of the country by the time we get to our Monday evening. And by the time we get to Monday, that system is completely moved off to the north and east. It is now bringing snow across parts of Quebec, rain through Maine. We're watching a little system that's going to move across the Canadian prairies, bringing snow to Saskatchewan and to Manitoba. Generally, about 5 to 10 centimeters are expected with this particular system. We see a little bit of a jab of colder air across the northern tier of states out west to begin our next week. But across the rest of the country, it is warm as warm can be. We're experiencing temperatures 10 to 15 degrees above our seasonal norm. And that pattern is really going to continue into next week. We're going to see more of a zonal flow with our weather system. So they're going to move generally west to east. That's not going to be as conducive to severe weather, but we will see the ability to tap into some of that Gulf moisture and get some heavier amounts of rains as those systems move off to the east. But by the time we get to the last weekend of April, the 27th, 28th, and 29th, we are starting to see signs of another deepening trough that is going to dig across parts of California and Nevada. So we're going to watch that because that could be a pattern flip that we see as we begin the month of May. The West could get really warm to start our May, while the East could turn potentially cooler than normal to start the month of May with that passage of that trough around the 29th, 30th of April. A lot to be determined. The models can definitely change. I mean, we're talking almost 2 weeks out from today. So stay tuned here at the Weather Farm, and we will bring you the latest information as we get it. We thank you for joining us here for your Friday at the Weather Farm. Again, let us know what's going on in your weather area. If you're seeing severe weather, let people know down in the comments section, because your comments help inform other viewers of this channel of the weather that they might be expecting. It is one big community here, and we're glad you're a part of it. Have a great weekend, and we'll see you again soon.